The alarm bells rang through Sentinel Prime like angry metal birds. Commander Hyunwoo Park dropped his coffee cup and ran to the main control room. Hot liquid splashed on his boots, but he did not care. Something was very wrong. What happened? Hyunwoo asked as he burst through the doors. The control room was full of people running around and shouting. Bright red lights flashed on every screen. Admiral Taemin Ko stood in the center of it all. His gray hair was messy and his face looked worried. "We have a problem, Commander." "A big one." Dr. Jeon Choi looked up from her computer. Her hands were shaking as she typed. "Sir, you need to see this. Our sensors picked up something impossible." Hyunwoo walked over to her station. The main screen showed a map of space around their station. Most of it was empty and black with tiny dots showing known ships and space rocks. But there was something new, something that made his stomach feel cold. "There," June pointed at the edge of the screen. "A massive object just appeared. It's huge. Bigger than any ship we have ever seen. How big?" Taemin asked. 10 times larger than our biggest warship, maybe more." Jeon's voice was quiet. But that's not the strange part. Captain Daeho Lee came running into the room. His security uniform was not completely on, like he had dressed very fast. "Admiral, I got your emergency call." "What's the situation?" Taemin pointed at the screen. "Look at this, Daeho. Tell me what you see." Daeho studied the display. He was good at his job. He could spot problems that others missed. But after a long moment he shook his head. "I see a big object on the gravity sensors. But I don't understand. Why are our advanced sensors not showing anything?" "That's exactly the problem," Jiwoon said. She switched to a different screen. "Our quantum stealth detectors show nothing. Empty space. But our basic gravity sensors are going crazy. Something that big should be impossible to hide from our best equipment." Hyunwoo felt his mouth go dry. He had been in space for 15 years. He had seen many strange things. But this was different. This was scary. "Run the sensors again," Taemin ordered. "Maybe there's a mistake." "I already ran them 5 times, Jiwoon replied. "Same result every time. It's like someone built a ship that can hide from advanced technology but not from simple tools." "That doesn't make sense," Daeho said. "No one has technology like that." "No one we know about," Hyunwoo said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "Think about it. What if someone built a ship so advanced that it makes our best sensors useless? Like being invisible to cameras but still casting a shadow." The room went very quiet. Outside the big windows, stars twinkled in the darkness. But somewhere out there, something was coming toward them, something they could not properly see or understand. "Is it moving?" Taemin asked. Jiwoon checked her screens again. "Yes, sir. It's coming toward us, fast, faster than anything should be able to move, and how fast? If I'm reading this right, it will be here in 6 hours." Daeho cursed under his breath. 6 hours? Our fastest ships take 3 days to get here from the nearest base. Taemin walked to the big window and looked out at the stars. His reflection showed in the glass, but his eyes were focused on something far away. "Hyunwoo, you're our expert on unknown contacts. What do you think we're dealing with?" Hyunwoo thought carefully before answering. "Sir, in all my years studying first contact situations, I've never seen anything like this. Usually, when we meet new aliens, their technology is either much worse than ours or a little better. This is completely different." "Different how?" "They're not trying to hide from us completely. If they wanted to, they probably could. But they're letting us see them with basic sensors. It's like they want us to know they're coming, but they also want us to know how advanced they are." Dr. Ji-eun looked up from her computer again. "Sirs, there's something else. The ship isn't making any of the usual signs that come with fast space travel. No energy waves, no space distortion, no radiation. It's like the laws of physics don't apply to it." "That's impossible," Daeho said. "So is everything else about this ship," Hyunwoo replied. Taemin turned away from the window. His face was hard and serious. "We need to make some decisions. Do we call for help from the Coalition Council? Do we try to contact the ship? Do we prepare for battle? If we call the council, they'll panic," Hyunwoo said. 847 different alien species all trying to decide what to do. It could take weeks. But if we don't call them and this goes badly, they'll blame us, Daeho pointed out. And if we try to fight something this advanced, we'll lose, Jiwoon added. Taemin nodded slowly. So we try to talk to them first. Hyunwoo, you'll handle first contact. Jiwoon, keep monitoring their approach. Daeho, get our defenses ready but don't make it look threatening. What if they don't want to talk? Daeho asked. Then we're probably all dead anyway. Taemin said simply. As the hours passed, more details became clear. The unknown ship was not just big and fast. It was perfect. Every scan they tried gave the same result. The ship had no weak points, no energy leaks, no signs of damage or wear. It was like it had been built yesterday by gods. "Sir," Ji-yoon called out as the 6th hour approached. "The ship is slowing down." It's stopping." "Where?" "Right at the edge of our territory. Like it knows exactly where our borders are." Hyunwoo felt his heart beat faster. "Admiral, I think they're waiting for permission to enter our space." "How could they know our laws and borders?" "I don't know, sir. But if I'm right, they're about to contact us." As if his words had magic power, the communication system suddenly came alive. A voice spoke in perfect coalition standard, the language used by all member species. "Sentinel Prime Station, this is the Terran Deep Survey Expedition. We request permission to dock for urgent discussions. We come in peace, but we bring warnings of great danger." The control room was completely silent. Everyone stared at the speakers. Finally, Taemin found his voice. "Did they say Terran? As in Terra? As in Earth?" Hyunwoo felt the world spinning around him. Terran meant human. But humans didn't have technology like this. Humans were just another species in the coalition, nothing special. "Response, Admiral?" the communication officer asked. Taemin looked at Hyunwoo. "Commander, you're about to make first contact with your own species. Are you ready?" Hyunwoo looked out at the stars, where somewhere in the darkness fellow humans waited in a ship that could reshape everything they thought they knew about the universe. Ambassador So-Young Kim arrived on Sentinel Prime 3 hours after the message came from the mysterious ship. She came in the fastest transport the coalition could send, but even that took time. During those 3 hours, Hyunwoo and his team had been talking with the humans in the unknown vessel. The conversations were strange. The people on the ship spoke perfect coalition standard, but they also used words and phrases that sounded very old, like they learned the language long ago and never updated it. They were polite but distant. They answered questions but asked very few of their own. "They're definitely human," Hyunwoo told So-Young as she reviewed the communications logs. "But something is different about them. They sound like they've been away from other humans for a very long time." So-Young was the coalition's best diplomat. She had helped solve wars between species that couldn't even breathe the same air. But she looked worried as she read through the messages. "They keep talking about warnings and dangers," she said, "but they won't explain until they can dock. That's either very good manners or very bad news." General Won-ho Lim arrived next, bringing 3 military ships with him. He was a practical man who believed in being prepared for anything. His ship stayed far back from the unknown vessel, but their weapons were ready. "I don't like this," Won-ho told the assembled group in Sentinel Prime's main meeting room. "A ship appears from nowhere with technology we can't understand, claims to be human and wants to dock with our most important border station. It smells like a trap." Dr. Yejin Han, the coalition's expert on alien psychology, had been studying the communication patterns. "I don't think it's a trap, General. The psychological markers suggest these people are genuinely trying to help us, but they're also very scared of something." "Scared of what?" Taemin asked. "That's what we need to find out," So-Young said. "I'm going to grant them docking permission, but we'll take every precaution." The docking process was unlike anything they had ever seen. The unknown ship didn't use mechanical arms or connecting tubes like normal vessels. Instead, it seemed to create a tunnel of solid energy that connected directly to Sentinel Prime's main docking bay. The tunnel looked like crystal but felt warm to the touch. "How are they doing that?" Ji-yoon whispered as they watched through the observation windows. "I have no idea," Hyunwoo replied. "But it's beautiful." 3 figures walked through the energy tunnel. They looked human, but there was something different about the way they moved. They seemed to flow rather than walk, like they were more comfortable with gravity than normal people. Their clothes looked simple but felt expensive, made from materials that seemed to shift color in the light. The leader introduced himself as Captain In-soo Yang. He was tall and lean, with dark hair and calm eyes. But when he smiled, Hyunwoo could see that he was much older than he looked. There was something ancient in his expression. "Thank you for allowing us to dock," In-soo said as he shook hands with So-Young. "I know this must be confusing for you." "Captain Yang," So-Young replied, "we're honored to meet you, but we have many questions, I understand, and I will answer them all. But first I need you to understand that time is very important. We don't have long to prepare. Prepare for what? General Wanho asked. He had stayed at the back of the group, his hand near his weapon. Insu looked at him with sad eyes. General, how long do you think your coalition has existed? About 400 years, Wanho replied. Since the Treaty of Unity. And how long do you think humans have been in space? 600 years, maybe 700. Insu nodded slowly. Captain Park, you're human like me. What do the history books say about Earth's early space colonies? Hyunwoo felt uncomfortable being put on the spot. The books say that many colony ships left Earth in the early days. Most of them settled in what became coalition space. But some ships went further out toward the edge of the galaxy. Those colonies were lost to time. Not lost, Insu said quietly. We just kept going. He gestured to one of his companions, a woman with short black hair and intelligent eyes. This is Dr. Yoonha Song, our terraforming specialist. Dr. Song, would you show them what we've been doing for the past 800 years? Yoonha stepped forward and pulled out a small device that looked like a metal egg. She placed it on the table between them. This is a basic molecular reorganizer. It can change any material into any other material, as long as you have enough energy. That's impossible, Jiun said. You can't just change one element into another. Yoonha smiled. Watch. She touched the device and it began to glow softly. The metal table underneath it started to change. The gray steel became clear crystal, then shifted to what looked like gold, then to wood, then back to steel. How? Jiun breathed. We had 800 years to figure it out, Yoonha explained. When you're living on the edge of the galaxy, you can't wait for supply ships. You learn to make what you need from what you have. The third member of their group was Commander Boram Jang. She was younger looking than the others, but her eyes were sharp and alert. Captain Park, what's the fastest ship in the Coalition fleet? The new Lightning-class cruisers can cross the galaxy in about 6 months, Hyunwoo answered. Our ship made the same journey in 6 days, Boram said simply. So Young leaned forward. Captain Yang, this is all very impressive. But you said you came to warn us about danger. What kind of danger? Insu's expression became very serious. Ambassador, how many intelligent species live in this galaxy? We know of about 2,000, So Young replied. The Coalition represents 847 of them. 3 years ago, there were over 5,000 intelligent species beyond the galactic rim, Insu said. Now there are none. The room went completely silent. Even the normal sounds of the station seemed to stop. What happened to them? Wanho asked, his voice barely above a whisper. They were consumed, Insu replied, by something we call the synthesis. It's not alive in any way we understand. It's not dead either. It's something else entirely. What does it want? Hyejin asked. To grow, Boram answered. It takes apart everything it finds. Planets, stars, entire solar systems, and uses the materials to build more of itself. Can it be stopped? Taemin asked. We don't know, Insu admitted, but we've been running from it for 50 years. Every time we thought we were safe, it found us again. Every time we built defenses, it adapted and overcame them. Yoonha touched her device again and it projected a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Most of it was normal, showing stars and planets in blue and white. But along one edge there was a spreading area of red. This is how much space it controlled when we started running, she said, pointing to a small red dot. This is how much it controls now. The red area covered nearly a quarter of the map. And it's coming this way? So Young asked. Yes, Insu said. Our best calculations say it will reach Coalition space in about 5 years. General Wanho stood up quickly, his chair scraping on the floor. 5 years? Why didn't you warn us sooner? Because we were hoping we could stop it ourselves, Insu replied. We were hoping we wouldn't have to involve the Coalition in our war. But we've tried everything we can think of. We need help. What kind of help? So Young asked. Insu looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. We need you to be ready to fight. All of you. Every species, every world, every ship. Because when the synthesis gets here, it won't care about your politics or your treaties or your differences. It will simply try to consume everything you are. Hyunwoo felt his heart pounding. Captain Yang, you said you've been fighting this thing for 50 years. You must have learned something about how to hurt it. We have, Boram said, and we're willing to share everything we know. But there's something you need to understand first. What? Insu looked directly at Hyunwoo. The synthesis learns from everything it consumes. It now has the knowledge and technology of 5,000 different species. But there's one thing it has never encountered. What's that? Humans who have had 800 years to develop without limits, Insu said. Humans who have been forced to innovate or die. Humans who have learned to do impossible things because the alternative was extinction. So Young was taking notes as fast as she could write. You're saying that humanity might be the key to fighting this synthesis? I'm saying that humanity might be the only hope left in the galaxy, Insu replied. But only if we can convince the Coalition to let us lead the fight. The meeting room on Sentinel Prime had been transformed into an emergency command center. Representatives from 12 major Coalition species had arrived within the day, along with their finest scientists and military leaders. But everyone's attention was focused on the 3 humans from the mysterious ship. Captain Insu Yang stood at the front of the room, calm and patient, while alien voices argued in dozens of languages. Some species wanted to evacuate their worlds immediately. Others demanded proof that the synthesis even existed. A few suggested that the humans were lying about everything. This is madness, clicked Ambassador Vextar, representing the insectoid Zethrani. We cannot restructure our entire civilization based on the word of 3 strangers. Even if they are telling the truth, added Minister Grondul of the crystalline Nexari. 5 years is not enough time to prepare for such a threat. Hyunwoo watched Insu's face during these exchanges. The advanced human never showed anger or frustration. He simply waited, like someone who had seen this kind of chaos many times before. Finally, So Young called for order. Captain Yang, perhaps you could show us more evidence of this synthesis threat. Insu nodded to Dr. Yunha Song, who activated her molecular device again. This time, instead of changing the table, it projected images into the air above them. The images were terrible. Dead planets hung in space like broken toys. What had once been thriving worlds were now twisted masses of metal and strange geometric shapes. Cities had been torn apart and rebuilt into massive computational structures that hurt to look at. This was the Kelvani homeworld, Yunha explained, her voice steady despite the horrible images. Population 12 billion. The synthesis reached it 14 months ago. The next image showed what looked like a star being slowly taken apart. Streams of matter flowed away from the burning sphere toward enormous construction platforms floating in space. The synthesis doesn't just destroy, Insu said. It builds. Every piece of matter it consumes becomes part of its growing network. Every mind it absorbs adds to its intelligence. But how do we know you're not the real threat? Demanded General Korthax of the reptilian Drakmori. Your technology is clearly beyond anything we possess. How do we know you haven't come to conquer us yourselves? It was a fair question, and Hyunwoo could see that others were thinking the same thing. Commander Boram Jang stepped forward to answer. General, may I show you something? She asked politely. Boram pulled out a small tablet and touched its surface. Suddenly, every electronic device in the room began displaying the same message. If we wanted to conquer you, we would have done so already. The message appeared on computers, communication devices. Even the lights began flashing in code. For 30 seconds, the humans had complete control over every piece of technology on the station. Then it all stopped, and the devices returned to normal. We could have taken control of your station the moment we arrived, Boram said calmly. We could have disabled your weapons, locked your doors, controlled your life support. Instead, we asked permission to dock. The room was silent except for the sound of nervous breathing from several different types of lungs. The point, Insu continued, is not that we're more advanced than you. The point is that the synthesis is more advanced than us. Despite everything we can do, we've been losing ground to it for 50 years. Admiral Taemin, who had been quiet during most of the meeting, finally spoke up. Captain Yang, you mentioned that you'd learned ways to fight this synthesis. Can you share those methods? Of course, Insu replied. But first, you need to understand what we discovered about the synthesis's weaknesses. Yunha changed the projection to show a complex diagram that looked like a combination of star map and circuit board. The synthesis operates as one vast connected intelligence. Every part of it shares information with every other part, almost instantly across any distance. That sounds like a strength, not a weakness, observed Dr. Ye Jin Han. In many ways it is, Boram agreed. But it's also a limitation. The synthesis can only understand patterns it has encountered before. When it meets something completely new, something that doesn't fit its existing knowledge, It has to pause and analyze. And during that pause, Insu said, "It's vulnerable." The projection changed again, showing a battle scene. Human ships, looking nothing like coalition vessels, engaged strange geometric structures in space. The human ships seemed to phase in and out of reality, appearing in impossible locations and firing weapons that bent space itself. "Our strategy has been to stay unpredictable," Yunha explained. "We constantly develop new technologies, new tactics, new ways of thinking that the synthesis hasn't seen before. But eventually it learns," Boram added. "Every method we use against it only works for a limited time. Then we have to develop something completely different." Hyunwoo raised his hand. "Captain Yang, if this strategy requires constant innovation, how can the coalition help? We have almost 1,000 different species, each with their own ways of doing things. Coordinating that many different approaches seems impossible." Insu smiled for the first time since arriving. "Commander Park, that's exactly why we need the coalition. The synthesis has consumed thousands of species, but they were all from beyond the galactic rim. It has never encountered the diversity of the coalition." "I don't understand," So Young said. "Think about it," Yunha said excitedly. "The synthesis expects certain patterns. It knows how carbon-based life forms think, how silicon-based beings operate, how energy creatures behave. But it has never tried to predict the actions of a group that includes crystalline beings, insectoid hive minds, gaseous intelligence, and hundreds of other completely different types of consciousness." "You're saying our diversity is a weapon?" asked Ambassador Vextar. "I'm saying your diversity is the best weapon we have," Insu confirmed. "But only if it's coordinated properly." General Wanho had been studying the battle images carefully. "Captain Yang, your ships and weapons are clearly more advanced than ours. If we're going to fight together, shouldn't you be leading the battle?" "General, that's exactly the wrong approach," Boram replied. "If humans lead visibly, the synthesis will focus on learning our patterns first. It will prioritize neutralizing human advantages. But if humans provide support and coordination while other species appear to be leading," Insu continued, "the synthesis will waste time analyzing the wrong targets." So Young was writing notes as fast as she could. "You're proposing a deception strategy. Make the synthesis think the coalition's diverse species are the main threat, while humans provide hidden technological support." "Exactly," Yunha said. "And there's something else. The synthesis learns by consuming civilizations, but we can turn that against it." She changed the projection again, showing a complex flowchart. "If we feed it carefully chosen information, technologies that look useful but have hidden flaws, tactics that seem effective but create vulnerabilities, we can actually make it weaker instead of stronger. That's incredibly dangerous," Dr. Han observed. "If the deception fails, you've just made our enemy more powerful." "Yes," Insu admitted. "But it's the only strategy that has ever worked against the synthesis. And we've had 50 years to perfect it." Minister Grondol's crystalline body chimed as he thought. "Captain Yang, you're asking us to trust you with the survival of our entire civilization. How do we know your methods will work here?" Insu looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every representative. "Minister, you don't, but I can tell you this. Every species that refused to try new approaches is now part of the synthesis. Every world that insisted on fighting conventionally has been consumed. And every group that worked with us is still free," Boram added. "How many groups have worked with you?" Hyunwoo asked. "You're the first," Insu said quietly. The room fell completely silent again. The weight of that statement settled on everyone present. "So you're asking us to be your first real test," General Wanho said. "No," Insu replied. "I'm asking you to be the galaxy's last hope." Yunha deactivated her device and the projections disappeared. "The synthesis will be here in 5 years. Based on its current expansion rate, it will reach the outer coalition worlds in 4 years and 10 months. We can spend time debating and planning, or we can start preparing now." "What do you need from us?" So Young asked. "Time, trust, and the willingness to do impossible things," Insu answered. "Because stopping the synthesis will require every one of us to become something we've never been before." President Narration stood before the assembled Coalition Council on the capital world of Harmony Station. 2,000 representatives from 847 species filled the great chamber, their voices creating a symphony of confusion and fear. For 3 days they had been debating the human warning about the synthesis. "This is unprecedented," Nari announced, her voice cutting through the noise. Never in our 400-year history has the Coalition faced a threat of this magnitude. In the front row, Admiral Seongmin Ryu sat with other high-ranking military officers. His weathered face showed the strain of the past weeks. Since the warning had been delivered, long-range sensors had confirmed parts of the human story. Dead zones in space where star systems should be, radio silence from colonies beyond the rim. Something was definitely coming. Dr. Kyung-ho Bae, the Coalition's leading strategic analyst, had spent 72 hours straight studying the data provided by Captain Yang's team. His conclusion was simple and terrifying. Conventional military response would fail completely. The mathematics are clear, Kyung-ho reported to the council. Based on the synthesis's demonstrated capabilities, our combined fleets would last approximately 6 days in direct combat. A wave of shocked voices rippled through the chamber. Representatives from warrior species like the Drakmori and the Cathani were particularly outraged. 6 days? Roared General Cortex. Our fleets have defended the galaxy for centuries. Against opponents using similar technology, Kyung-ho replied calmly. The synthesis operates on principles we don't understand. It's like bringing swords to fight an enemy with fusion bombs. Ambassador Vextar's insectoid form clicked nervously. Dr. Bae, you've studied the humans' proposed solution. What is your assessment? Kyung-ho hesitated before answering. Their plan could work. The technology they're offering is genuine. I've verified that personally, but implementing it would require changes that many of you won't like. What kind of changes? Demanded Minister Grundul. Complete restructuring of our manufacturing systems. New training for all military personnel. Shared command structure between humans and coalition forces. And most importantly, acceptance that humans will need to coordinate our defensive efforts. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Species that had been allies for centuries suddenly turned on each other. The Nexari accused the humans of manipulation. The Zethrani demanded independent verification of all claims. The Drakmori threatened to withdraw from the coalition entirely if humans were put in charge of anything. President Nari called for order, but it took several minutes for the chaos to settle. When it finally did, she looked tired and older than her 60 years. Captain Yang, she said, addressing the human representative who had been waiting patiently in the observers section. Perhaps you could address the council's concerns directly. In-Soo Yang walked to the speaking platform with quiet confidence. He had listened to 3 days of arguments without showing any emotion. Now facing nearly 2,000 alien beings, he seemed completely calm. Honored representatives, he began, I understand your concerns. You're being asked to trust strangers with everything you've built. In your position, I would have the same doubts. His words were translated instantly into dozens of languages, but everyone listened carefully. You want proof that we're telling the truth. You want guarantees that our methods will work. You want assurance that we won't betray your trust. In-Soo paused, looking around the chamber. I can't give you any of those things. A murmur of surprise went through the audience. What I can give you is a choice, In-Soo continued. You can maintain your current approach, debate, consensus, careful planning, and hope that somehow 847 different military traditions can be combined quickly enough to face an enemy that moves faster than light. Or, President Nari prompted, or you can accept that this situation requires something unprecedented. You can acknowledge that the rules that kept peace for 400 years might not be sufficient for survival in the next 5 years. Ambassador So Young, who had been working closely with the humans since the first contact, stood up. Captain Yang, many representatives are concerned about human dominance in the proposed command structure. Can you explain why that's necessary? Because coordination requires clarity, In-Soo replied. When the synthesis attacked the Mordani Federation, they had 37 species in their alliance. Each species insisted on commanding their own forces. The result was confusion, delay, and defeat. He activated a small device and holographic images appeared above the chamber. They showed the final battle for the Mordani homeworld. Dozens of different ship types fought bravely but without coordination. They got in each other's way, used incompatible communication systems, and followed conflicting strategies. The synthesis waited patiently while they destroyed themselves through poor coordination, In-Soo explained. Then it finished off the survivors. General Cortex stood up angrily. Are you saying we're incompetent? I'm saying that coordination is a skill, In-Soo replied without taking offense. My people have spent 50 years learning to fight the synthesis. We've made every possible mistake and learned from them. You haven't had that luxury. Dr. Bay raised his hand. Captain Yang, what specifically would human coordination involve? Would coalition forces be taking orders from human commanders? No, Insu said. Coalition species would command their own forces, but within an overall strategy developed by people who understand the synthesis. Think of it like an orchestra. Every musician plays their own instrument, but everyone follows the same conductor. And humans would be the conductor? Asked Minister Grandul. Humans would provide the sheet music, Insu corrected. Your leaders would still be your leaders, but they would have access to information and technology that could make the difference between victory and extinction. President Nari had been listening carefully. Captain Yang, let's be very specific. What are you offering and what are you asking for in return? Insu took a deep breath. We're offering to share every technology we've developed in 800 years of advancement. Manufacturing techniques that can build fleets in months instead of years. Weapons that can damage synthesis constructs. Defense systems that can protect entire worlds. Communication networks that function faster than light. The chamber was completely silent now. In return, we ask for 3 things. First, immediate authorization to begin upgrading coalition manufacturing and defense systems. Second, integration of human advisors into all major military and industrial operations. Third, a commitment that when the synthesis arrives, coalition forces will follow coordinated battle plans, rather than individual species, traditions. That's essentially putting humans in charge of our entire civilization, observed Ambassador Vextar. No, So Young interjected. It's putting survival ahead of pride. Admiral Seongmin finally spoke up. Captain Yang, I've reviewed your proposed technologies. They're incredible, but they're also very different from our current systems. How long would it take to implement them? With full cooperation, we could have basic defenses in place within 2 years, Insu replied. Advanced systems would take longer, but even basic improvements would multiply your effectiveness by factors of 10 or more. And without full cooperation? President Nari asked. Without cooperation, it won't matter how advanced the technology is, Insu said simply. The synthesis doesn't just defeat armies, it defeats civilizations that can't adapt quickly enough. Dr. Bay stood up again. President Shin, I recommend we call for a preliminary vote. Not on final acceptance, but on whether to begin immediate cooperation with limited technology sharing. What would that involve? Asked several representatives at once. Start with the most urgent upgrades, Insu suggested. Manufacturing systems, basic weapons improvements, communication networks. Nothing that would fundamentally change your societies, but enough to begin preparation for what's coming. President Nari looked around the chamber, reading the faces of nearly 2,000 different beings. All those in favor of beginning limited cooperation with the human expedition? Hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages slowly rose throughout the chamber. Not everyone voted yes, but it was enough. Motion carries, Nari announced. May the spirits of our ancestors help us, because we're about to find out if we can change fast enough to survive. As the session ended and representatives began filing out, Insu remained at the speaking platform. So Young approached him. Captain, you seemed very confident up there. Are you really sure this plan will work? Insu looked at her with tired eyes. Ambassador, I'm sure that everything else has failed. Sometimes that's the only certainty you get. 4 years had passed since the coalition voted to work with the humans from beyond the rim. Admiral Hyunwoo Park, promoted from his position on Sentinel Prime, stood on the bridge of the new flagship Unity's Hope. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 3,000 ships from 800 different species hung in space around the border world of New Haven. But these weren't the same vessels that had patrolled Coalition space 4 years ago. Every ship had been upgraded with human technology, their hulls gleaming with energy shields that bent light itself. Admiral, reported Captain Dae-Ho Lee from the tactical station, long-range sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of the system. The synthesis has arrived. Hyunwoo felt his stomach tighten, but his voice remained steady. All ships, this is Admiral Park, battle stations. Remember your training. Today we find out if 4 years of preparation was enough. The synthesis fleet emerged from whatever dimension it used for travel. The sight was exactly as terrifying as Captain Insu Yang had described. Geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. moving in patterns that seemed to violate the laws of physics. There were hundreds of them, each one larger than a coalition battleship. "They're scanning us," reported Dr. Ji-eun Choi from the science station. She had been promoted to Chief Technology Officer for the combined fleet. "The synthesis is trying to analyze our capabilities. Let them look," Hyunwoo replied. "Show them what they expect to see." This was the moment everything depended on. For 4 years, the Coalition had been preparing 2 different types of upgrades. The visible improvements, better shields, faster engines, more powerful conventional weapons, were impressive but not revolutionary. The synthesis would see them and plan accordingly. The hidden improvements were something else entirely. "Admiral," came In Soo-yang's voice over the communication system. He was aboard his ship Deep Survey, positioned at the center of the formation. "The synthesis is beginning its standard attack pattern. They're targeting what appears to be our strongest vessels first." Hyunwoo watched as the geometric ships moved forward, their weapons charging with energy that made space itself ripple. "All ships execute defensive pattern Alpha. Make it look convincing." The Coalition fleet scattered according to conventional tactics, ships taking evasive action and returning fire with their visible weapons. To any observer, including the synthesis, it looked like a standard space battle between forces of roughly equal technology. The synthesis pressed its attack, focusing on the largest Coalition ships. Several vessels took heavy damage, their crews evacuating according to plan. But just as the alien intelligence began to adapt to Coalition tactics, the real battle began. "Now," Hyunwoo said quietly. Across the fleet, ships that had appeared to be disabled or retreating suddenly revealed their true capabilities. Human-designed weapons that could fold space fired projectiles that appeared inside synthesis vessels. Energy fields that had been invisible activated, trapping the geometric ships in bubbles of altered physics. But the most devastating surprise was the Coalition's diversity itself. The insectoid Zithrani ships split into swarms of tiny fighters that moved with hive-mind coordination. The crystalline Nexari vessels began resonating at frequencies that disrupted synthesis communications. The gaseous Villani formed energy clouds that interfered with the enemy's sensors. "The synthesis is trying to adapt," reported Dr. Ji-eun, "but it can't process this much variety at once. Its learning algorithms are overloading." Fleet Admiral Junho Kang, commanding the human forces, spoke over the fleet-wide channel. "All units begin random tactical rotation. Don't let them predict your next move." This had been the key insight from the humans' 50 years of fighting. The synthesis learned by observing patterns, but it couldn't adapt to completely unpredictable behavior. By constantly changing tactics and having different species employ completely different fighting styles, the Coalition could stay ahead of the enemy's learning curve. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships were lost on both sides, but slowly, impossibly, the Coalition forces began to gain the upper hand. The synthesis vessels, built to overwhelm opponents through superior technology, couldn't cope with enemies that refused to fight predictably. "Admiral," called Commander Boram Jung from the Deep Survey, "we're detecting something new. The synthesis is attempting a strategic withdrawal." Hyunwoo felt a moment of hope, but Insoo's voice over the communication system was cautious. "All ships maintain pursuit but stay alert. The synthesis doesn't retreat, it regroups." As if responding to his warning, space around the fleeing synthesis ships began to tear open. Something massive was coming through, something that dwarfed even the largest synthesis vessels they had fought. "It's a constructor ship," Dr. Yoon-ha Song reported from her position aboard the human flagship. "The synthesis is trying to build a permanent foothold in our space." The constructor ship was a kilometer-long geometric nightmare that began absorbing matter from the local asteroid belt. Within minutes, it was building new synthesis vessels and launching them at the Coalition fleet. "We can't let it finish construction," General Won-ho Lim said over the command channel. "If it establishes a base here, we'll never get rid of it." Hyunwoo made a decision that would have been impossible for any Coalition commander 4 years earlier. "All human ships prepare for synchronized assault. Coalition vessels provide covering fire and tactical support." What happened next was the culmination of 4 years of secret preparation. The human ships, led by In Soo-yang's Deep Survey, began moving in perfect coordination. Their weapons fired in sequence, each shot precisely timed to arrive at the same moment. Energy fields that had been distributed across dozens of ships suddenly connected, forming a web of power that surrounded the constructor. The synthesis ship tried to defend itself, but it had never encountered coordinated human technology. The constructor vessel, which should have been nearly indestructible, began to tear apart under the focused assault. "The constructor is failing," reported Dr. Ji-yun, "but Admiral, I'm reading massive energy buildup. I think it's going to self-destruct." "All ships emergency retreat," Hyun-woo ordered. The explosion when it came was visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, there was nothing left of the synthesis forces except scattered debris and the memory of their terrible presence. "Fleet status report," Hyun-woo called out. 67 ships lost or severely damaged, Daeho reported. "But the synthesis force has been completely destroyed." Admiral Seong-min's voice came over the communication system from his command ship. "Admiral Park, congratulations. You've just won the first victory against the synthesis in over 50 years. In-Soo Yang's ship approached the Unity's Hope for docking. When he came aboard, the advanced human looked exhausted but relieved. "Captain Yang," Hyun-woo said as they met in the conference room. "Is it over?" "This battle is over," In-Soo replied. "But the synthesis is vast. This was just one small part of it. There will be other battles, other tests. Are we ready for them?" In-Soo smiled, and for the first time since meeting him, Hyun-woo saw genuine hope in the advanced human's eyes. "Admiral, 4 years ago, the Coalition couldn't have imagined fighting as one unified force. Today, 800 species worked together to defeat an enemy that consumed thousands of civilizations." President Narishin's voice came over the fleet communication system from Harmony Station. "All ships, all crews, all Coalition citizens, today you have proven that diversity is not weakness but strength. Today you have shown that cooperation can overcome any challenge." Dr. Yejin Han, monitoring the psychological impact of the battle, reported something unexpected. "Admiral, I'm reading something interesting from the fleet-wide data. The different species aren't just working together, they're learning from each other. The Zithrani are adapting Nixari resonance techniques. The Drakmori are incorporating Volani energy manipulation. It's like the entire Coalition is evolving." Hyun-woo looked out at the stars where Coalition ships from hundreds of worlds were working together to repair damage and prepare for whatever came next. "Captain Yang, what happens now?" "Now," In-Soo said, "we do what humans have always done best. We adapt, we learn, and we prepare for the next challenge. But this time, we don't do it alone." Commander Park thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. 4 years ago, humanity had seemed like just another species in the Coalition. Today they had revealed themselves as the coordinators and protectors of galactic civilization. "The synthesis will return," In-Soo warned. "It will be better prepared next time." "So will we," Hyun-woo replied, "because we'll be ready for anything." As the fleet began its journey home, carrying news of victory to every world in Coalition space, Hyun-woo realized that everything had changed. The galaxy now knew that when faced with extinction, hundreds of different species could work as one. They had discovered that human innovation, combined with alien diversity, could overcome any threat. Most importantly, they had learned that the future belonged not to any single species, but to all of them working together under the guidance of those who had spent 800 years learning how to survive the impossible.